There are so many things as humans that we don't really understand. There are mystic, magical, fated things, as well as otherworldly realms that we just can't comprehend unless it's through the journey of our own soul. I'm your host, Steffi, aka The Spirit Sis. I'm a psychic medium, astrologer, and intuition teacher, and I'm here to take you on an exploration of all things spiritual. I'm going to connect to Source, give you divine downloads, and I want to keep you in the spirit loop. So here is the Psychic Scoop. Hello, and welcome back to the Psychic Scoop podcast. I'm your host, Steffi, aka Spirit Sis. I'm an evidential psychic medium, professional astrologer, and intuition teacher here to hold your hand through your spiritual awakening journey, or just here to geek out on woo-woo stuff with you. I'm so happy you're here. I also cannot even express how excited I am to bring this episode to you. And I also have to say, this whole episode was extremely and divinely led by spirit, as most of my podcast episodes are led by spirit. But this one was like, holy crap. Okay, wow. Manifestation coming to life. So without further, I'm going to explain the backstory with all of this because it's very rich in history. But I'm going to be interviewing Rebecca Rosen. She is a spiritual medium, and we're going to discuss her new book, What's Your Heaven? Now, why this is so important, I'm going to give you a little backstory on. Back in the day, in 2011, I had just been out of college, maybe like a year or so, and I was in a very deep and dark depression. Now, in college, as some of you know my story, I started giving psychic readings when I was 18. It was palm readings. And, it was a fun party trick, right? Like I would do it from time to time. And I started to get really good at it. And I started to feel a little more comfortable kind of accessing people's energy and also channeling their loved ones. But it wasn't anything I ever thought about as a career choice. It was just something I knew I was good at. But again, in Michigan, where I lived at the time, it wasn't necessarily like a widely accepted thing. I was scared to come out and tell people I was a medium. It wasn't until a friend of a friend of a friend heard and asked me to give them a reading would I ever feel comfortable. So when I graduated college and I left this kind of safe space and went into the workforce, I was really confused because I had spirit messages, coming in all the time, but I wasn't able to express them. And then two, I moved back into my home where I was under the roof of my narcissistic father, and I was in a toxic relationship at the time. So I was getting emotionally abused in two different ways. And then also the home I lived in was on this haunted portal. So talk about a whammy. And I got into this pretty dark depression, and this was also the point of my life where I've discussed in other episodes, but I was having so much anxiety and panic attacks that I would actually black out and drive myself to the hospital and then wake up and come to and be in the parking lot. And I would have no recollection of how I got there. So, how does Rebecca come in? One day, I just fell on my knees and asked anybody. I asked God, I asked Spirit, Universe, my loved ones on the other side. I said, I'm confused. I don't know what to do. I'm really in this dark place. Please help me. And I felt this pull that I needed to go on a drive. And I ended up at Barnes and Noble, which I think they closed down, but Barnes and Noble was basically like, it's a bookstore. And I've always been drawn to places where literature is stored. It's very calming to me. I love libraries, I love bookstores. And I found myself just weaving in and out of the bookshelves, just kind of like calming and grounding myself. And of course, I was magnetically pulled into the spiritual section. It wasn't even like I sought it out, I was pulled there like a little magnet. And they were displaying this book, and I saw it and I was just drawn to it. And it was called Spirited by Rebecca Rosen. And it was about her life as a psychic medium. She also was talking about how she discovered her gifts because she was in Michigan, like where she was from or where her family was from. And it was just so wild because here I am, a psychic medium, closeted, mind you, reading a book about someone who's going through a mental health issue and struggle, and how through this darkness she was able to channel and become a psychic medium. So I'm like, wow, this was spirit led. I mean, quite literally spirited. And I had this feeling deep inside in my soul that one day I would be able to talk to Rebecca. I just didn't know how or when, but she changed my life in such a big way. And she made me feel comfortable really honing those gifts and coming out and being a psychic. And I just loved the way she spoke. It just felt like so resonant. And anyway, the two mediums that I've loved my entire life and look up to, Rebecca Rosen and Teresa Caputo, I had a feeling I'd meet them both. Now, Teresa Caputo, I'd met and we had this like love session. But Rebecca Rosen, I was like, you know what? Someday, somewhere. I still followed her journey. I've always read her books. And cut to recently when I was listening to one of my friends' podcasts, Lauren LaGrasso, her podcast, Unleash Your Inner Creative, and I heard a familiar voice, and it was Rebecca Rosen on her podcast. And I reached out to my friend Lauren and I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe you're talking to Rebecca Rosen. That episode just like uplifted my spirit. I'm so happy and so excited you got to talk to her. She's like been an idol of mine, blah, blah, blah. And Lauren's like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. She's great. She's from Detroit like us. I was like, I know, like, this is just so wild. And didn't think anything of it, but I knew that episode really touched me. And then I was in Japan on my moon and my Neptune line, and I get CC'd on an email from my bestie, dear friend Lauren, and she's giving me an intro to Rebecca's publicist. Well, anyway, the rest is history. Rebecca agreed to come on the podcast, and this is the episode that's happening today. So, mind you, I was totally fangirling, so excited, and also really grounded in this conversation. I think it's so interesting to have a conversation between two intuitives, psychic mediums. And of course, like I could have talked to her for 7 hours. Like there's so much we could discuss, but I think talking about the topics in her book is exactly why we needed to get this information out today. I'm sure there might be follow-ups, who knows. But anyway, I just wanted to share how exciting and how this manifestation came to be, how much of an important role she's had in my life. I'm keeping it together now because I've literally cried about it with gratitude like all weekend. And anyway, I just have to thank my friend Lauren for making the connection, but also knowing just how it all happened and how Lauren and I have this insane connection too. Like not only past lives, but in this life, we just have so many like interweaves. So anyway, this is just meant so much to me, more than I can put into words. And I'm really looking forward to sharing this conversation with you. So thanks for listening to that history. And I just wanted to, I don't want to say word vomit, but I wanted to like express my gratitude for this moment and how much it means to me, and also that you're here and I'm sharing it with you. So without further, I want to introduce Rebecca Rosen. And also, I didn't say at the intro how to connect with me, but you already know. Look in the show notes if you want more. But on Instagram, I'm spirit_sis, spiritsis.com, and on TikTok, spirit sis. So let's dive into this very juicy, amazing combo between two mediums. Here is special, special, special guest, Rebecca Rosen. Rebecca, I'm so excited that you are here. I already told you off air how much I love you, but the listeners are going to fall in love with you too. So thanks so much for being here today.
Ah, it's a great way to start. Good energy. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
I always like to ask all of my guests, what is your zodiac sun sign?
I'm a Cancer moon and sun.
Wait, you're double Cancer?
I am.
Oh,
Yes.
what's your rising sign?
Capricorn rising.
Oh, well, that's so interesting because you're on the opposite.
Counterbalance.
Oh,
I
well, that
know.
makes sense though for your business and everything to have that
Right.
Capricorn. I'm a double Cancer too.
I knew I liked you.
I know it was same energy, and we're
That's
both like
amazing.
have Michigan roots. Okay, cool. Yeah, wow, okay. I feel, I mean, your intuition makes the most sense to me right now.
Love that.
But okay, so first I wanted to just talk about your new book, What's Your Heaven? This is your fourth book. Can I just say congratulations on that? How do you feel?
Thank you. I feel blessed. I feel from the day I discovered my gift, it was always, okay, spirit, use me. I'm not going to go chase after this, bring it to me. My first book deal, my literary agent found me. She tracked me down through, I was working with some manager out in Los Angeles. She was in his office. She's like, I have to do her book. And every book has always been when spirit tells me, not from a mind level, like it's time to write another book. And that's why I've waited, organically 4 or 5 years in between each book. And so spirit, when the time is right, the information easily presents itself. And that's what happened with this book.
Well, you just answered my next question I wanted to ask, because this book feels a little tonally different, but it's jam packed with so much information. I mean, you have affirmations in there, visualizations. You talk about client stories and tapping. I mean, there's just so much good information in this book. I gobbled it up like within a couple hours. But so when you are conceptualizing this, do you kind of get peppered in inspiration from spirit, or is it one big download? Like, how did this book come to be?
So the way this happened was that I noticed this recurring theme happening during the pandemic. And, I had the blessing of being able to continue my work because my readings are over the phone. So I could do it remotely. I was seeing, God, 30 to 40 clients a week, every week for 2 years.
Oh, wow.
It was amazing. And so I kept hearing the same messages. And so it was really everyone's at a crossroads and they're reevaluating everything. We were forced into this universal timeout with the pandemic, and it gave us this great opportunity to honestly reevaluate our lives. And so from there, I kept getting access from spirit to people's soul contracts in the Akashic records. And so, right, in the Akashic records, it's that kind of spiritual cloud where it stores all of our past lives, present life, future life, and what we signed up for, the soul assignments, or what I call life assignments, that we are here to learn. And that's karma. We are here to heal and balance. And so it was kind of this awakening, like, wow, people need to hear this, because it reframes everything from taking you out of victim, like my life is happening to me with whatever you're struggling with, to empowerment. Like, no, it's happening for me, and it's allowing me the opportunity to learn these lessons and to get out of the pain and struggle and move into the grace, ease, joy, and flow that we're meant to experience, right? Which creates our heaven on earth, which is why I called it What's Your Heaven?
Oh, yeah. And that's such a good little tie-in. And I also like too how you talk about how heaven is such a deeply personal experience. So when you've been channeling spirit, what are some of your favorite examples of heaven? I mean, I know it's so different for every individual soul, but are there any like favorites?
Well, my favorites are always the ones that resonate with me. And it's usually they're, at the beach, playing outside by the water. Maybe it's Disneyland, or maybe it's Las Vegas. That's definitely not my heaven. But for me, it would be anything in nature, okay, where you're able to connect with the people you love, maybe celebrating something. But the point is, heaven isn't a place, it's a feeling. And so spirit will come through and like give you an idea of literal locations or things you do, because those bring you the feelings of heaven.
Yeah. And also when you're, connecting to a client, you're explaining like they're in their happy place. And I think that's probably deeply comforting for someone who's grieving.
Exactly. And it's also to be kind of careful with that. Like, I don't want to rub into people's faces that they're blissing out in heaven while you're struggling and suffering in this living hell, right? Because so often that's what happens. The survivors have it harder because they forget. And so my job is to wake them up and remind them there is no death. And you can create a living hell or a heaven on earth now. You don't have to wait until you die to join them in that happy place. And so it's just a state of mind. It's shifting it. And so that's what this book is doing. And I always say the book finds you when you're ready. So anyone listening who this is resonating for, I would say, if it resonates, there's a reason you're ready for this, to wake up and to create your happy place, your heaven on earth.
Especially since it's all spirit led. So it will find you when you're ready. And I found your books exactly when I needed to. And I was a closeted psychic, and you helped me like grow and evolve. So yeah, I also love you talk about, well, a lot of it's about incarnation too, and in this concept of earth school. So why do us as souls, why do we choose to come down to earth school? I'm sure it's layers.
It sounds crazy. Why would anybody choose that?
Yeah.
The soul remembers what the ego, the mind forgets, and that it's a temporary experience. Time is an illusion. And so, we choose to come here to balance and heal karma in the physical realm, in the environment in which it was originally created. Okay, so you can clear it, heal it, and evolve from it a lot faster if you do it where it originated from. So the example I'd like to give is this. Let's say you're curious about Italy. It's one thing to get online and start researching or pick up a book and read about it or watch a documentary. It's another thing to get on a plane with your passport and go walk the land and have that firsthand experience. So that is the same with why would you come into a body versus in theory, just work through your stuff in spirit? Because it's a lot richer and fuller and you can do it more efficiently.
And probably twice as fast, right? Like you're learning the lessons. Even the heavier lessons, like that's incurring karma almost like twice as fast as if you were to stay in spirit and to be a guide or whatever, right?
Exactly. And honestly, you can do it that way. In fact, my dead grandma Babe, that's what she did when she came to me all those years ago, right? She died by suicide, took her life. And she said, instead of reincarnating, she was going to help me heal and evolve and be my spirit guide. So it was a win-win. I get ahead and get on my life path and purpose. And she heals her karma from taking her life and stays in spirit. So we all have the free will to choose how we do it. But that's why we come to Earth School. And Earth School doesn't have to be a grind. It doesn't have to be negative. It can be a playground and Earth School, in my opinion. And again, it's all about how you choose to approach it.
You talked about free will, which is very fascinating. And it begs me to ask the question, like, can that free will interfere with some of your lessons?
Oh, yes.
Especially like in regards to your grandmother, right?
Yeah, it can for better, for worse. Every day, every moment we have free will and we make choices, and we make choices either from that frequency of light or shadow. And by shadow, I mean our personality, our frightened parts of our personality, our ego, and out of alignment. And so our work here is to be in as much alignment as possible so that we are choosing from light, so that we're making the choices not only for ourselves, but everyone around us for the highest good of all.
Yeah. Wow. And sometimes it's hard to really put a sensor on those lessons that you're learning when you're here. It's like you forget why you're here. You just have to go through the lessons, which is interesting.
It's called spiritual amnesia, and we all have it at times, but we get glimpses sometimes where we wake up, whether it's in like a deja vu or it's in a profound dream or deep meditation. We can wake up and remember and have the aha moment, like, oh, this feels like this happened before. This is supposed to be happening. Or you meet someone, you're like, God, they feel so oddly familiar. And it's because you are remembering that you put that in your contract that is destined to show up.
That deep soul remembering. Yeah, I'm sure everyone can resonate at one point of their life where they felt super aligned. And of course, many times where we feel off alignment.
Yes.
I really like the example you wrote in your book about your stepdaughter, Hannah, and how you were seeing that there was lessons happening to her. How do you deal with that? Because as an intuitive person, you can't really, or maybe even just a listener, you see your friend going through something and they're learning this lesson over and over again. How do you discern, like, do you step in and help, or do you just keep on your own path?
As a human, as a mom, it's really challenging because we just are wired that way. We want to make life easier. We want to rescue and help our kids or spouses or whoever. So what I've learned is I ask myself, what's mine to do? What's not mine to do? Meaning, where am I being called to step in as part of their soul contract and be of service and help? And where am I being called to zip my lips, get out of my ego and give it to God, give it to their guides? And at that point, I just pray for that soul's highest truth, highest healing, highest good of all, whatever needs to happen, because that bypasses our ego. This happened recently where my son was applying to colleges, and from day one, he applied to 13 different film schools. And I said, I told him the school from day one. I said, it is here in Los Angeles. It's Loyola Marymount. This is the school. And it was like number 3 on his list. And we went through for months and months and months, and he was stressing out. And I just let him because I'm like, he already knows. Well, sure enough, he got deferred. And then in the end, the very last day he had to decide, he got accepted.
Of course.
Of course. And so he says, okay, next time I'll listen to you, mom. But I'm like, that was for him to go through that experience and come back to, okay, next time, like, let's just skip all that and just go straight to either I always say, trust your psychic mother if you're not going to listen to yourself. Always listen to yourself first. But
that's the title of your next book, Trust Your Psychic Mother. I swear, because I mean, that must be a very interesting karmic lesson for
I have
everyone.
lots of information I could put into that book with those kids. So yeah.
Especially with that double cancer, it's very, you're very nurturing. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. I hear you say a lot. You talk about ego, very important lessons in there, and the why. So you talk also about, like, why did my house burn down, or why did I have cancer, or why was I raised in an abusive household? And those are really like hard, challenging things. But why do those lessons kind of help us in Earth School?
Right. The most empowering thing I've learned is not to say, why is this happening to me, or why isn't this happening? It's, what is this here to teach me? Because that is what we're here to do, to learn lessons, to teach lessons. And the why is, the victim mentality is the lowest frequency, this energetically on that scale of consciousness. I talk about in the book, Dr. David Hawkins, I put in the scale of consciousness with shame and victim at the very bottom, all the way up to enlightenment and love and everything in between. And our job is to evolve up that ladder, okay, that scale of consciousness. And it's important because we all have an ego, and the ego is not bad. It allows us to be individuals. But as I heard Wayne Dyer once say, ego stands for edging God out. When you disconnect, when you unplug from that divine spark that we all are, that's the soul, right? And when you unplug, you start to feel separated, scared, alone, afraid, all of that. And that's where those lower hell-based emotions come in. And it's really hard to have a heaven on earth when you're in that frequency.
Yeah.
And so that's why I talk about it, because it's normal. I've been there, trust me. Sometimes, I mean, it's not a linear process. I was there a few days ago. I fell into like the why. Yeah. But I immediately recognized, okay, I can either be in victim or I can be in victor. I can move into empowerment. And so I'm like, okay, Spirit, what is this here to teach me? And how do I move forward from this? How do I find healing and balance in this?
That's good. So it's almost like asking yourself, or being really aware of those lower frequency feelings, because sometimes being a victim, not that it feels good, but it's weird how you can feel so empowered on the highest vibration and feel very magnetic. But as a victim, it's keeping your ego's feeding all of those things, right? That tells you deserve it, whatever. So that's very interesting. You just notice it, almost like call it out. Like, I see you, ego. Actually, one of my girlfriends calls her Igor.
Oh, I love it.
She's like, Igor is coming up. So every now and then when we're having a conversation, I was like, is it Igor? And she's like, oh my gosh, it's totally Igor. So it's almost just, you're bringing the awareness to the low frequency and calling it.
Yeah, calling it and feeling it and being real about it, and like sulking in it for a minute, like lean into it, and then decide to let it go. Yeah. And that will neutralize it so that you can move up that scale.
Yeah.
Right? Because you can't love and light it. You can't spiritually bypass this away. If you feel victim, you feel victim. Okay. But at some point, the law of attraction, it keeps responding. So if you continue to play out that messaging, those false beliefs and programming, you'll keep attracting more of that.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. But yeah, it's just the lesson that you're here, that human incarnation, that sometimes I was like, dang it. Like, why? But yeah, I love how you have so many examples of the book of how to like reaffirm yourself and get out of that place. And it's funny. Sometimes I feel like some people might idolize mediums or think that they got it all figured out, but it's like, you're just as human as us. Like, we're all trying to figure out
We are
What's
all,
going on?
my husband and I just had this conversation yesterday because we were talking about my homework. And I'm like, it's sometimes I feel embarrassed or ashamed because I'm out here preaching. He reminded me, he's like, you're no different than anybody else. You're just a few steps ahead. And it's true. I am the guinea pig. I have to walk through it. Sometimes it's bigger and messier, my lessons, because I really need to understand it so I can fulfill my purpose in being a teacher and help others. I'm a guide. I'm here to show people the possibility of when you embrace your homework and you really do the work, like you're saying, this book is like a workbook. And if you
Yes.
really can, you don't have to do all of it, but you could say, oh, affirmations resonate, or tapping resonates, or running color, energy resonates, or all of it. Pick and choose what works. And then you start making it a practice, just like you would go to yoga and make it a practice. You do the work, your life will balance and heal and become magical and joyful, which is the whole point, right? And so the bottom line is I am human in my life. I have the same messy stuff. But for me, the gift is I have I have an advantage. Every single day I get to hear from spirit and view it from a broader spiritual perspective, which brings so much hope and brings so much relief. I'm like, okay, everything really is okay. And so I hope that's what this work does. It inspires everybody else to feel that peace.
Yeah. And the energetics of helping people and knowing that's your mission, but also helping yourself. It's like that glass full situation. Like you can't empty out to if you're not full yourself.
That's right.
Yeah. And you've been very open about your mental health struggles in your family and how you really wanted to break that cycle. So let's say a listener or anyone's doing the homework and they have the awareness and they want to break the cycle. How do we figure out that it ends with us? Is it just the awareness of breaking the cycle or is it the action? I don't know. That's so difficult.
It's both. It always, intention is key. The intention to want to, energy follows intention. But then, it's a mind, body, spirit, like practice where you have to do all these things. Now, what I would say about mental illness, it's so important that if you truly think you might be or you are, that you get professional help. Because some of us, like I played around with medication 24 years ago when I was going through my depression, but what I realized is I didn't need it. I wasn't chemically imbalanced. It was a situational depression. And so for me, I didn't need the medication and I still don't, thankfully. But for some people like my dad and my grandma, they needed it. And the minute they got off of it, but my dad got off of it is when he took his life.
Wow.
And so I just so encourage people, you can be on medication and be spiritual and evolve because then it brings you to zero, like you're even, right? And then from there, you can spiritually grow and evolve. Now, patterns of depression in your family. So I talk a lot about the epigenetics of all this and intergenerational patterns, spiritual hand-me-downs, so to speak, that have been passed down to you to tackle, that are your family's, they're your patterns, the programming, the cycles. So whether it's, alcoholism or depression or unworthiness or scarcity consciousness, there's all sorts of patterning that we recognize. Wait a second, this isn't mine. It's not my karma. I didn't bring it in. This has been conditioned into me by my upbringing, my childhood, my environment. And so I go a lot into being able to recognize that and then wake up to it. And from there, again, waking up brings the clarity. When you know what you don't want, you get crystal clear on what you do want. And so you want to focus forward. You want to stop giving it energy. You want to call your power back from whatever that, false belief is or programming. And then you want to, again, use your tools on a mind, body, spirit level every day and change the narrative.
Yeah. Ooh, I was just getting emotional hearing that because sometimes I just feel it so deep within me and my ancestry, like the things that I need to heal. And I feel like I've done a good job. But yeah, sometimes it's just the reminder of why you're here and why it's important to have it stop with you. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's so important. I think a lot of people feel that recently. I feel like there's been more, or
Yeah,
maybe, I
I
don't know.
do.
I don't know. Do you feel like there's like swirling energy towards healing was it epigenetics?
Epigenetics. Yes. Oh,
Which
100%.
is
That is what's happening.
collectively.
The
Hmm.
universe is changing. The old earth is dying, a new earth is being reborn, right? There's more
Oh yeah.
light codes coming onto the planet, and the vibration scientifically, literally, is rising, and it's allowing more awareness. It's like the veil between heaven and earth is lifting and thinning. And so we're able to identify a lot quicker, the patterns and the awareness, like this isn't mine,
Yeah.
right?
Oh
And
yeah.
calling your energy back from that and your power back so that you can clear and balance and get on with your living your life and fulfilling your purpose. Not, and when you do this, you actually heal generations behind you, your ancestors, and generations forward.
Whoa, that's really powerful. Well, you keep saying pull the power back, but wow, yeah, just how it almost
Right.
like reverberates and that vibration continues. Oh, wow.
Exactly.
It just, I could just break down crying how beautiful that sounds and feels like, and it resonates in my heart space
Yeah.
because I know how hard every family is so complicated, right? But yeah, that's really powerful.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think well, I know everyone has painful family histories to some degree and trauma, whether it's big T or little t traumas that we are here to work through, right? Truly, unless you're like a saint like Mother Teresa, like nobody's immune to this. And so there's no shame in it. It's just the question is, what is your unhealed karma? What are your lessons? And then having the courage to do the work, as we've been talking about, to transform from that, to evolve past it.
Mm-hmm. And doing the work for sure. I mean, you have to show up for yourself and that healing, which sometimes is hard because sometimes in the middle of the healing, you could be like, whoa, this is heavy. I need to take a break. But I think it's important to know you're making like progress and stride, even if sometimes it does feel super. I don't know if that happens to you where if you're doing a ritual or routine and or shadow work, and then you're like, whoa, this is a little too much. Because I know that's happened to me before.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's big, scary stuff. It takes a lot of courage and perseverance to keep showing up to it. And there's no race to the finish line. Like spirit will say, like, there's no one size fits all. It's not like you have to dig in and do it and get it all done in a month or a year. For some of us, it's a lifetime's work. And you're going to take a break and move away from it for a couple months, couple years, and then you'll move back and return to it when you're ready. So just to take that pressure off of ourselves.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, I love that. It's the journey, not the destination situation, which I'm sure spirit tells you all the time.
All the time.
Yeah. But we're
And
all,
yet we can't, our ego has a hard time believing that
I
sometimes because
know,
we want it now. We've been conditioned to believe, easy, fast, like now.
instant
And
gratification.
oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Yes.
Oh,
I
oh
know.
well. But at least when you're going through these, valleys, peaks and valleys, at least, you can rely on your soul remembering or your intuition. So do you have a specific sign that spirit gives you when you know you're on the right track, or are you open to all signs?
Well, I'm open to all signs always because
That's
we
true.
in spirit will say, like, don't limit yourself to it's just cardinals or butterflies or numbers or music. Like, spirit needs options, right?
Mm.
Let's say you're indoors. It's really hard to send you a butterfly if you're sitting inside,
It's true.
right?
Yeah.
But okay, so I have my kind of go-to signs, and you can establish this with your team and spirit. And mine had my 6/28 is my birthday. So it's always been when that shows up. It doesn't matter where it shows up, but it could be a license plate, a receipt, on the clock. When I see 6/28, it's a wink. It's them saying, we're with you. Good job. You're right where you need to be. Okay. If I see 629, it means call your energy back from the future, stop worrying. Or 627 means stop sulking, get out of the past, or reminiscing or rehashing the past. And so, my dad sends me dimes. Some of my guides send me sunflowers. Music is another one, certain songs. So
Yes.
with this, what I recommend to people to do is to, meditate and ask your higher self, ask your team, what are my signs? Or you can do it the reverse, establish what they are and say, Spirit, I would love for you to send me license plates. Okay, going on a road trip, talk to me. So if you communicate with them, I promise you, they'll communicate back. The key here, and I talk about it in the book, is determining what really is an organic, authentic sign versus wishful thinking, like you're trying to make it fit. Right.
Yep.
So if
Been
your
there.
favorite song is on a playlist and you turn on your playlist, of course you're going to hear the song.
Yeah, right. That's very true. Yeah, I think I've seen this with some of my clients, but I've been there where I've challenged, like, okay, Aunt Kay, if you want to send me a message, like I'm gonna be waiting, send me this, but it always does track. And I've actually known for a long time that pennies are from my Aunt Kay. And whenever I'm about to travel, I get super nervous. And she was just a very spunky personality. And I've actually I was like eating at the airport and I bit into a penny. It's
Are
in my food.
you kidding me?
No.
That
And I
is
was
one
like,
way to get your attention. Thank God you noticed it.
well, also too, I was being sassy and I was questioning if she was there. So
I love
anyway,
it.
I thought that was like a hilarious story. But yeah,
I
I
love her
try.
sense of humor.
Yeah, no, totally.
That's great.
But yeah, that's a good, you give a lot of great examples too in the book about how to like interpret signs and how they can come in so many different, I mean, it's infinite, right?
Endless. Yes.
How many ways. I guess another question I have, we were talking about like rituals and routines. Is there something that you have to do every day or something you feel called to do that you really love?
Yeah. I mean, I have some non-negotiables. And the first one is I have to pray and meditate, even if I'm not seeing clients that day. So there is such a difference in my day and how it goes. If I start out my day in 5 minutes of prayer and just kind of intention setting, when I say prayer, it's like, thank you, divine spirit, for this day. Thank you for lining things up with the day of heaven on earth, grace, ease, flow, and joy. Thank you for, and then I'll just list out what it is I'm hoping to co-create. So that's huge. Moving my body. So I'm sure, like you, I run a lot of energy through my body and I've got to clear my vessel. It's like we're empaths, we're sponges. And so for me, yoga, walking, hiking, especially when I can combine exercise with outdoors, because getting into nature is another big one for me. It's all the negative ions, it's stillness, you ground, you connect to Mother Earth, but you get out of all the EMF, especially when I go hiking
Oh,
and
yeah.
all the things that can mess energetically with your field. And so those are some of the most important things that I have to do, if not, usually every day.
Mhm.
But you're gonna, it's all about being flexible and not so rigid,
That's
right?
key because
It is.
sometimes you can feel it bubbling up like I need to move. I haven't been outside today, but then there are other times where you just have space and you're willing to spend more time.
Yeah.
But rituals are a very important part of your spiritual journey, would you say?
Oh my gosh, yes, for everybody, because you have to integrate the lessons, you have to create rituals or practices. And I all day, every day, I'm doing this. I listen, sometimes I'll turn on a podcast while I'm getting ready in the bathroom just to attune my energy frequency to that high vibe, podcast, listening to music. And so in order to really embody, integrate our work, it's repetitive. It's like building a muscle. You can't go to the gym once and expect to have a perfect body,
Hmm.
right? And so the same goes for our spiritual hygiene and energetic being.
I love spiritual hygiene. Okay, great. Yeah, that's so important. And that makes me feel good that, you strengthen your gifts and connection to yourself through doing that every day. Cause I know sometimes it's hard to not or get into a habit, but once you do it every day, it's easy.
It's like
Just,
brushing your teeth. And then you're
yeah.
like, because honestly, the feeling is so amazing. It's worth it. Okay. So it's like, I mean, I know, in fact, just the other day over the weekend, I didn't. I got right out of bed and I got right to it. My day did not flow. And I had to take a time out. I'm like, oh, I need an hour. And I just dismissed myself from my family. And I went and I took a salt bath and I reset. But that was on me. I own that. And so just try it, put it to the test. It goes back to that whole when you know what you don't want, you're crystal clear on what you do want.
Yeah, wow. Good for you to be like, hold on, I need 10. Because sometimes it's, I mean, at least for me in the past, like I'm such a people pleaser. I'm like, I'm fine, I'm fine. And then you're
Yeah.
like, I'm dying inside because that can happen.
And then eventually it catches up with you because that was my programming, being a people pleaser, middle child, father with mental illness growing up. And so you want to make everyone and everything okay, but it came at my expense. Like I got adrenal fatigue. And so
Yes.
you don't learn the hard way. It's like that example in the book with Hannah. It's like the universe will start out whispering. And then if you don't get it, it's then going to become a little bit louder until if you still don't get it, it's going to be a giant roar. And it doesn't need to be a crash or right. It can
Yes.
be
It can be
a gentle
avoided.
nudge, a whisper.
Uh-huh. Oh, that's really hitting home because sometimes I think you just look for more validation. You're like, I think that might be the right way, but I don't know. I'm just going to keep doing it. And then it's like, boom, you get hit again with something. Well,
Well,
yeah.
and that's the thing in this book. I talk a lot about, we sign up with these loose blueprints and these lessons that are inevitable. They're going to come around. And you can say no, you can resist and run and hide, but not forever. Okay? They're going to keep circling back and they get again more intense each time you bypass them. And so this is where you surrender and you go with the flow and you say, okay, universe, this is here for a reason. What do I need to learn from this? How do I heal and find balance from this? Balance the karma from this. And then they go away. Okay. Because
Mhm.
you can check that box and move on to another lesson.
Yeah. And I just love how open you are with dialogue you have with, you say co-creation. And that's really where the magic happens, right? Like we are in a relationship with the universe, in some ways.
We are. And that is the beauty of our free will. And so I have a lesson. There's 7 fundamental lessons. And one of them is I'm surrounded, I'm supported. And it's all about your team spirit. And your team spirit, it's a co-creation with the divine. So, that being source, which we are a part of, and that including angels and spirit guides and departed loved ones. And it also includes living earth angels, your ground crew, as I call them, the pets you have, the people that are your people. We are in co-creation in this journey of life to again learn important lessons and teach important lessons, and we're doing it together. And again, if you think you're doing it alone, that's the ego edging God out. And
Mm.
so again, it's just that awareness of, oh, right. So you plug back in to that support system. And that's where life becomes magical. That's where you get the signs and the synchronicities, and life begins to flow.
And that's why your book is so important about making heaven on earth because, it's a great theory too. You're like, yeah, it feels good. And then we go through these lessons, we get bumped. But at the end of the day, like we are just grateful to be here and to be learning the lesson because, when people are in spirit, they're learning the oh, that was so easy. I know exactly what I need to do. But here we have forgetting.
I know. And what this book really is an inspiration from spirit saying, don't make the same mistakes. And when they died, they woke up and had those aha moments. And they're saying, get it right now, because where we pick up in death where we left off in life. So all your work's going to follow you. You might as well have, checked all these boxes and have something to look forward to. Like you get some R&R time on the other side because you've done your work
Right.
in
Really
Earth
enjoy
School.
it.
Yeah.
Ooh, yep. Oh my gosh. Okay. Amazing. I wanted to ask you some listener questions they submitted, if that's
Please.
okay. Okay. Some of these I picked out, I really love. Okay. So this one's from Lindsey. She says, boundaries seem like a huge lesson that mediums must learn in a real specific way because you are such a sponge on the earth. What is one way to tell spirit to be quiet, or how do they tell you to be quiet and listen?
Oh,
I know. I love the way
I
she phrased
love
that.
how you worded that. It's huge. Boundaries I talk about in the book is one of my biggest lessons, and goes back to that releasing the need to people please. And so what I've done, it's for me, it's been trial and error over the years, but I am very clear with spirit. Like I have an open for business. Like when I'm open, I basically all these spirits are always there. And people always say, can you turn it off? No, we're not that powerful. Energy doesn't go away, right? It's always there. But it's like being in a restaurant that's loud and there's music on in the background, and you can either tune in or tune out that music. It's always on though in the background. The same with the spirits, the energy can be there. But what I've done is I say, okay, spirits, I can't help you until I'm in front of your loved one, because a John who died of a heart attack on Valentine's Day means nothing to me if I'm hearing it and I don't have the right, receiver in front of me.
Yes.
So I put him in a golden, like instead of a green room, I put him in a golden room,
Oh my
the
gosh, I
waiting
love
room.
that.
I'm like, go to the golden room. And then I ask them to stay there until I'm in front of, whether it's remotely or literally in front of their loved one. And so I've created those boundaries so that they know. And the truth is, I show up several times a week. I don't work 7 days a week. I would
Oh
burn
yeah,
out,
of
but I
course.
work a good 4 to 5 days a week.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, and I love it. I love it.
Mm.
But I need that balance. And so as long as spirit knows I'm going to show up at some point, they honor the boundary and they usually leave me alone. And I sleep really well. And so I usually invite them into my dreams if they feel they need to come, but I also hold boundaries. Sometimes I'm really tired and I'm not wanting to work when I'm supposed to be resting and sleeping. So that sometimes I'll say only my team and spirit. I do not allow in any other energy into my sleep state. So you just have to be really clear on what do you need, and then not being afraid to establish those boundaries lovingly but firmly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And spirit will remind me, not, abruptly, but gently when I need to be quiet and I need to listen. Because there are many times when let's say I've had too much caffeine and I'm
Yes.
just go, 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 go. And I can't sit down and meditate and sit still. And then, I mean, I'm attuned enough to them where I know I can hear
Yes.
them.
Oh
It's
yeah.
more of a feeling. It's like that nudge, like, I know, I feel you. I got to go do this.
Yes, caffeine's a big one for me too. I feel almost a little too, and sometimes even if I'm having a glass of wine or something, I'm like, oh gosh, okay, spirit's a little closer. I need to put the boundary up. So are you sensitive to anything that you
I
intake?
am.
Yeah.
I am, but I also use caffeine. I really do. And occasionally, yes, I'll have my glass of wine, but because of this work, my instrument is my equipment, my vessel, my body. And so I treat it like a temple. And I believe everything in moderation. I'm not extreme. And so I will go out and have fun with my friends and stay up late, even though I know what's best for me to go to bed early, to eat clean, and to manage my energy, even down to not going out into crazy environments like loud crowds
Yeah.
or being around negative people.
Yeah.
Like you eventually absorb it.
Oh yeah.
And then
Okay.
it takes a lot of work to unwind that and to release it. And so some things are worth it and some things aren't. And so
Mhm.
it's just deciding what that is.
Yeah, you dialed down your boundaries. You're really good at that.
Only because I've been forced to and I've had a ton of practice, but
Right.
I'm
Learning
still
through.
working on it.
Oh, I mean, yeah, it's a life lesson, I'm sure. Beautiful. Thank you. Okay, Brooke asked, how did you know you were ready to start giving reading?
I didn't. My friend back in the day when I lived in West Bloomfield, she basically I was terrified. And she said, "You just did the most amazing reading on me. Like I'm forcing you to test this out on a few of strangers, like my friends that you don't know." She like threw me into the deep end. And I'm so grateful to her for doing that, because I probably would have my personality. I don't like being out there on stage. Like I am an introvert on some levels, actually an ambivert, which I
Oh, yeah.
recently discovered that term,
Uh-huh.
right? I can go
Yeah.
either way,
Uh-huh.
but I recharge by being alone. I don't like the spotlight. And so Spirit almost forced me through that friend. And then I did it. And here's why I kept doing it. The feeling I got from them on how much healing and peace and comfort it brought them was worth any of my ego's resistance. I'm like, this is not about me.
Yeah.
I see the profound healing effect it's having on a lot of these people's lives. And what was happening those first few months or years of doing this work, even though I had doubt, I'm like, yeah, can I really do this? Like years into this, I was still doubting because I couldn't comprehend how I was doing it.
Yeah, that's sometimes hard. Yeah, because you're like, I've known my body my whole life. What's happening?
What is happening and how? But anyways, I'm way past that. But, the bottom line is I recognized that this is not about me. And I was proving reading after reading, there's no way I could know this information about total strangers. And so I was building my faith and trust the more readings I did. And then when you get out of doubt, it's like a garden hose that's clenched. And the minute you release resistance or doubt or fear, it unclenches and it flows easily and continuously. Okay.
Yeah. So I guess for Brooke, it would just be if she's asking about if she wants to start giving ratings, just go for it. Just jump in it.
Feel the fear, do it anyways with clear intention that you are here to show up and serve. And Spirit, make this easy, make it high vibe, help me to be in a place of faith and trust. Set your intentions, let go, feel the fear, do it anyways, and watch. It'll be amazing.
Oh, Rebecca. Oh my gosh. Mic drop. So good. Okay. Gosh, last one. Okay. So what Aylin asked, what happens if you want to connect to a loved one, but the soul has already reincarnated?
So whether embodied or disembodied, we can connect to a loved one. Now, I don't channel. If the soul's in a body, I as a medium don't channel living people. Okay. But if that's so, okay.
I know it's a hard one energetically to explain.
Right. So if the soul is in spirit and it's available, then we can make a strong, solid connection. Okay. If it's the right timing. If the soul has reincarnated, then you might be able to tap into the spirit guide of that soul or to your soul group and be able to get information about that soul. But a part of our energy, our higher self, is always in the spirit world. We only take a percentage of our soul into the body, and the rest remains as the higher self in the other higher planes. Okay. But for me to make a connection, I need the majority of that soul's energy, which means it's physically focused in a body. I can't connect to you because they're your grandchild, let's say. They've reincarnated. And so now it's back in the pool. Okay. So we can talk about it, but I can't channel it. Does that?
Oh yeah, that makes absolute sense. I love that you said that your soul is in like just a fragment in the body, right? You still have your higher self. It totally makes sense. And it's also not everything's linear in spirit or energetics of who knows, but that does make a lot of sense. Okay. One more because you're on a roll. Jennifer asked, I guess you kind of answered. She asked, like, what's the quickest way to raise your vibration, or how do you protect yourself as a medium right before a session?
Okay. Quickest way to raise your vibration, get into gratitude. So get out of your head, get into your heart. Think of someone or something you're grateful for. Okay. Really try and feel that. Gratitude is the fastest way. Joy. Do things that light you up, bring you joy. Be around people who light you up and bring you joy. Those are the best things I could say. Okay. And then how do I protect myself?
Right. Yeah. Right before a session, or I guess before going out or something.
Yeah. I call in divine spirit, which to me is God. It's that eternal light and love that we all come from. And I say, I'm only in agreement with source, or I'm only in agreement with the light. I only work for the light. I call in divine light and only light. So that right there, if you're not even looking at the dark stuff, you're just focused on the light and don't give your energy or attention to anything less than that, you're going to attract only frequencies that match that pure intention of source light. Okay. Yeah. And so you want to establish boundaries and you want to say, what you're willing to work with. And that right there rules out what you're not willing to work with.
Yep.
So that's the biggest way. And then I talk about in the book how you can put a gold, you call in the frequency of gold. Gold's the highest frequency, connects you to the divinity within you and around you. A gold bubble of light. There's so many amazing psychic tools out there. You
Yes,
just got to
but
find what works for you.
also you give so much throughout all four of your books and all of your teachings, or even just watching your channeling and sessions on YouTube or your website. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of nuggets you gave today and always. So just thank you so much. I
Oh,
think
my
this is going to
pleasure.
help so many people, and what you do has touched my life so greatly. And I just really am appreciative of you and all of your healing that you give. You're such a
Oh,
big expander for a lot
thank
of
you.
people.
Thank you. I love it. And you're such an inspiration, because just hearing you say all that reminds me why I choose to continue to do this work. And if I can, it's like taking a candle and lighting other people's, wicks. And then we all go and do our part to keep spreading light. Because think about all the people you're helping and touching. It's that ripple effect. So it means a lot. And thank you.
Oh man, this cancer, this cancer love fest. I'm just going to start crying any moment now.
I know. I love it.
Okay, so where can people find you or work with you,
Yeah.
read your books?
So my website's RebeccaRosen.com. My hashtag is at Medium Rebecca Rosen. You can get the book anywhere. You can get it on Amazon, any major book retailer. You can get it through my website. And I thank you. I thank you for supporting this work. I thank you for doing the work as well.
Oh, yay. Thanks. Okay, sending you so much love, everybody. Till next time. Bye-bye.